always wants to act like he's such a victim or that everybody's so mean to him or whatever. And he has this shy, pretty wife now, and she's really shy. And she's really pretty.
Cody Brown and Robin's shocking forced monogamy drama. You won't believe what really happens
Those
behind
are words he's used.
doors.
He's very shy and
They
she's
say
really
love
pretty. I'm
makes
like,
the
well,
world
good for
go
you.
round. But what happens when the world you built your love on collapses beneath your feet? Imagine a life meticulously crafted over decades, built on promises, rituals, and shared faith, only to have everything unravel because the very foundation, your freedom to choose, was never really yours. That's the story of Cody Brown and Robin, two adults caught in the tangled web of a life they didn't fully select, navigating the treacherous waters of a monogamous existence forced upon them after years of polygamous practice. And yet, the cameras keep rolling, the lights keep shining, and the world watches as this carefully orchestrated facade starts to crumble. At first glance, Cody and Robin appear to be the embodiment of a committed couple, partners weathering storms together. But look closer, peel back the surface, and you see the cracks, the fractures that tell a very different story. Cody Brown, a man once celebrated for his expansive love and multiple marriages, now finds himself confined by monogamy. Robin, initially a willing participant in a plural lifestyle, is now trapped by circumstance, navigating expectations imposed by family, faith, and an imperfect system that glorifies compliance over choice. Together, they are trying to turn lemons into lemonade, but the sourness of what was forced upon them lingers in every glance, every conversation, every unspoken resentment. From the beginning, their lives have been a complicated dance between desire, duty, and manipulation. Cody has openly admitted that many of his previous marriages were already on shaky ground before the cameras ever rolled. On screen, the family presented a picture of perfect harmony, a smiling, happy polygamist with loving wives and adoring children. But behind the scenes, it was a different reality entirely. Every gesture of affection, every declaration of undying devotion, was calculated for the audience. Cody's charm, once perceived as sincere, is now revealed as part of a larger performance, a carefully curated mask concealing the volatility of his personal life. Robin entered this landscape with hopes, expectations, and faith that the system she believed in would provide structure and fulfillment. She accepted the principles of polygamy, convinced that it was the righteous path, the means to achieve spiritual elevation and familial unity. Yet, as time went on, the promises of love and equality began to falter. Cody's own insecurities, combined with the inherent tensions of polygamy, created a climate of instability. Monogamy was imposed not out of mutual desire, but out of necessity, circumstance, and the practical impossibility of sustaining multiple relationships under public scrutiny. The core tension lies in the paradox of their situation. Cody seeks to avoid conflict, to escape nagging, and to assert control over his life in a way he never could during his polygamous marriages. Robin, on the other hand, continues to grapple with ingrained beliefs and family pressures. She navigates her own expectations, attempting to reconcile personal conviction with the reality of a monogamous life she did not choose. In private interviews, both admit that this is not what they envisioned for themselves, yet on screen, they attempt to project a narrative of contentment and solidarity. The disparity between their public persona and private reality fuels the drama, making every interaction charged with tension, every shared meal a performance, and every glance a negotiation of unspoken grievances. Cody's confessions are particularly revealing. He admits, almost candidly, that what drives him is not love, but respect and control. He acknowledges that men, in his worldview, desire to be respected above all else, often valuing authority over genuine emotional connection. This admission is a window into his psyche, explaining why, despite his apparent devotion, he struggles to see Robin as an equal partner. Respect, in his mind, is not earned through mutual care, but assumed through the hierarchy of the relationship. Robin, devoted yet constrained, must navigate this landscape with finesse, balancing submission with self-preservation. The tension is relentless, simmering beneath polite smiles and polite conversation, threatening to boil over at any moment. The daily dynamics of their household further illuminate the fragility of their union. Cody's involvement in parenting is minimal, his engagement with children superficial at best. Tasks that require consistent attention, such as helping children get ready for school or engaging meaningfully in their lives, are delegated or neglected. This lack of presence exacerbates the emotional distance between him and Robin, leaving her to shoulder responsibilities that, ideally, should be shared. The resulting imbalance magnifies the stress inherent in their relationship, creating fertile ground for resentment, frustration, and subtle acts of defiance. Every mundane interaction, a misplaced phone, a minor disagreement, becomes symbolic, a microcosm of the larger dysfunction that defines their marriage. Complicating matters further are the family pressures that continue to loom over Robin. Though she has ostensibly accepted monogamy, her extended family still expects her to honor the principles of plural marriage. This external pressure seeps into her decisions, conversations, and private reflections, forcing her to constantly negotiate between personal autonomy and familial expectation. Cody, acutely aware of these dynamics, leverages them subtly, shaping narratives and influencing Robin's choices in ways that maintain his comfort while limiting her agency. The result is a calculated dance of influence, manipulation, and careful negotiation, a silent battleground where love is intertwined with control, and devotion is measured against compliance. The emotional stakes escalate dramatically when the past intersects with the present. Memories of Cody's previous marriages, of shared rituals and failed promises, shadow the current relationship. Robin cannot help but compare, consciously or unconsciously, the dynamic she shares with Cody to that which he cultivated with other women. Cody, aware of these comparisons, oscillates between defensiveness and assertive control, attempting to assert dominance while shielding himself from vulnerability. This oscillation creates a bipolar rhythm in their interactions. Moments of apparent harmony are punctuated by emotional turbulence, miscommunication, and subtle power struggles. At the heart of it all is the fundamental mismatch in motivation. Cody's embrace of monogamy is largely self-serving, driven by a desire to minimize conflict and control outcomes. Robin's monogamy, by contrast, is largely imposed, a response to circumstance and external pressure rather than genuine alignment of desire. The misalignment is stark, and it manifests in ways both overt and subtle. Arguments, passive-aggressive remarks, and unspoken disappointments accumulate, eroding trust and fostering a climate where emotional intimacy is difficult, if not impossible, to maintain. Yet, despite the turmoil, there is a strange resilience in their story. Both Cody and Robin continue to navigate this landscape, attempting, however imperfectly, to preserve a semblance of partnership. There is a conscious effort to project unity for public consumption, to maintain appearances even as private fissures expand. In many ways, this effort is emblematic of the broader challenge faced by families entangled in polygamy and monogamy, balancing faith, expectation, and reality in a world that constantly scrutinizes and judges. As observers, what we witness is more than mere entertainment. It is a window into the complexity of human relationships constrained by cultural, religious, and personal expectations. Cody and Robin's struggles are emblematic of a broader human truth. The life we live is rarely the one we envision. Choices imposed, desires unfulfilled, and the tension between autonomy and obligation define not just their story, but countless others navigating similarly constrained circumstances. The climax of their narrative is not a dramatic confrontation, nor a single explosive revelation. It is the slow, inexorable tension of two lives intertwined yet misaligned. It is the silent accumulation of unmet expectations, subtle acts of control, and the quiet erosion of trust. Each scene, from breakfast routines to family dinners, reflects the larger pattern of imbalance, miscommunication, and emotional negotiation. Every smile is measured, every touch carries subtext, every word is layered with intention and consequence. And yet, for all the drama, there is a cautionary beauty in their struggle. It reminds us that love is not merely a feeling, but a complex interplay of choice, circumstance, and commitment. It reveals how power, control, and manipulation can coexist with affection, and how devotion alone is insufficient to sustain a relationship without mutual understanding, respect, and autonomy. Cody and Robin's story is a stark, unflinching examination of what happens when the ideals of love collide with the realities of imposed circumstance. As the cameras continue to roll, as audiences watch each tense interaction, and as Cody and Robin navigate the treacherous waters of a monogamous life forced upon them, one thing becomes painfully clear. This is not a story of romantic perfection, but of survival, negotiation, and the fragile architecture of human connection. Their journey challenges viewers to question assumptions, to confront uncomfortable truths about control, obligation, and desire, and to recognize that even in the most publicized lives, the private struggles are often far more complex than they appear. In the shadowed corridors of reality television, few stories are as revealing, or as quietly devastating, as the saga of Cody Brown, Christine, and Robin. Imagine a life curated for cameras, meticulously edited to project harmony, joy, and devotion, only for the curtain to lift and reveal the undercurrents of tension, manipulation, and unmet expectation that had been simmering all along. That is the world Christine's book exposes, a world where appearances are carefully constructed, where love is performative, and where the ideal of family is often a carefully staged illusion. The revelations are startling, not because they shock the imagination, but because they strip away the comforting veneers and expose the raw, uncomfortable truth. Behind the smiling faces and polite conversation lies a labyrinth of fractured relationships, subtle betrayals, and emotional strategies designed to preserve control. From the very beginning, Cody Brown's marriages were never as simple or as idyllic as the cameras suggested. Christine's book makes it abundantly clear that many of his relationships were fragile from the outset, teetering on the edge of collapse long before the world ever saw them. While the family appeared on screen as a happy, harmonious polygamist household, the reality was a far more complicated and, at times, corrosive environment. Each public gesture of affection, each tender scene of domestic life, was carefully choreographed to mask the instability lurking beneath. Cody's earlier claim that he had adopted his religion not just for faith, but to multiply his love, now reads as a piece of masterful performance, a façade meant to legitimize a lifestyle that was, in practice, fraught with tension and disappointment. What once seemed like devotion now reveals itself as calculated artifice, a form of emotional gaslighting in which the audience, the family, and even his wives were all complicit in sustaining the illusion. Christine's narrative does more than recount the past. It contextualizes the current strain between Cody and Robin, revealing the subtle yet powerful influence of family dynamics, expectation, and control. Robin, though ostensibly committed to a monogamous life, continues to navigate the pressures exerted by her own relatives, who view polygamy not merely as tradition, but as a spiritual imperative. Her choices are constantly scrutinized, her intentions questioned, and her freedom constrained by layers of familial expectation. Cody, astutely aware of these dynamics, leverages them with quiet precision. His remarks and decisions often serve dual purposes, maintaining a public image of marital stability while simultaneously ensuring that Robin remains constrained by both her beliefs and her obligations. What may appear as affectionate teasing, casual conversation, or mundane disagreement is, in reality, a subtle battlefield where control, influence, and psychological maneuvering dictate the flow of domestic life. The daily realities of Cody and Robin's household further illustrate the fragility of their arrangement. Cody's involvement in the minutiae of family life is minimal. Mornings, long celebrated as the foundation of routine and connection, are instead arenas where his presence is largely symbolic. He passes through rooms, exchanges cursory greetings, and engages superficially with children who require guidance, attention, and emotional engagement. In doing so, he perpetuates a structural imbalance. Robin assumes the lion's share of caregiving, decision-making, and emotional labor, while Cody maintains the appearance of involvement without embracing its substance. This discrepancy not only heightens tension, but slowly erodes the mutual respect and partnership that are essential for a functional monogamous household. The absence of shared responsibility becomes a recurring motif of frustration, resentment, and subtle power struggle, a pattern that underscores the unsustainable nature of their current marital arrangement. Robin's position is further complicated by the emotional tug-of-war between her past beliefs and present circumstances. While she has ostensibly accepted monogamy, her worldview remains shaped by the principles of polygamy and the expectations of her family. Conversations with relatives, subtle reminders of spiritual obligation, and cultural reinforcement continually pressure her to reconcile a life of enforced monogamy with an internalized belief system that champions multiple unions. Cody, aware of these pressures, simultaneously manipulates them to his advantage, ensuring that Robin's decisions are influenced as much by deference and compliance as by genuine consent. The result is a delicate, tension-filled equilibrium where autonomy is curtailed, and every act of affection or disagreement carries undertones of strategy, negotiation, and unspoken resentment. What emerges is a stark depiction of control embedded within domestic life. Cody's approach is methodical. He presents an image of partnership and care while retaining ultimate authority over key decisions. His minimal involvement in parenting, his selective engagement with household duties, and his strategic communication all reinforce his position as the arbiter of both freedom and restriction. Robin, meanwhile, negotiates the boundaries of obedience, affection, and personal desire in a landscape where her choices are never entirely her own. The children, often witnesses to these subtle dynamics, absorb lessons in hierarchy, negotiation, and the performance of affection, an inheritance of behavioral patterns that are as instructive as they are unsettling. Yet the drama extends beyond mere household logistics. The psychological stakes are immense. Cody and Robin's interactions oscillate between outward displays of warmth and covert displays of tension, creating a bipolar rhythm of domestic life. In public or on-camera moments, they perform unity, project stability, and demonstrate affection. In private, however, conversations brim with undercurrents of frustration, power negotiation, and subtle manipulation. Every casual remark is laden with subtext. Every routine disagreement may signal deeper dissatisfaction. It is a relationship defined as much by strategy and psychological gamesmanship as by affection or emotional intimacy. Christine's book serves as a lens through which this complex dynamic can be understood. By documenting Cody's past failures, the performative nature of his previous marriages, and the fragile equilibrium of his current household, it exposes the subtle machinery that sustains the illusion of harmony. For Robin, these insights illuminate the ways in which expectations, control, and manipulation have shaped her current reality. For viewers, they provide a rare glimpse into the mechanisms by which power, control, and personal belief intersect in a domestic context, revealing the profound difficulty of sustaining authenticity when every choice is constrained by external pressures and internalized doctrine. Perhaps most striking is the cumulative effect of these dynamics on emotional intimacy. Cody's limited engagement with daily routines, coupled with the strategic navigation of power and control, creates a vacuum in which genuine connection struggles to flourish. Robin's ongoing negotiation between inherited belief and imposed circumstance compounds the challenge, leaving both parties in a state of persistent dissatisfaction. Emotional labor, once mutual, has become asymmetrical. Love, once abundant, is now tempered by frustration, obligation, and strategic calculation. It is within this framework that their monogamous arrangement must be interpreted, not merely as a lifestyle choice, but as a fragile, negotiated existence under constant stress. Even the children's experiences reflect the subtle fractures in household dynamics. Minimal parental engagement, inconsistent attention, and the emotional weight of observing strategic interactions between adults shape a domestic environment in which the rules of affection, authority, and expectation are constantly under negotiation. These dynamics not only impact the present but have long-term implications for how relationships, trust, and emotional intelligence are internalized. The household, outwardly performing normalcy, is a microcosm of power, hierarchy, and the consequences of constrained choice. As the narrative unfolds, the line between performance and reality blurs. Cody and Robin, while physically cohabiting and ostensibly committed, exist in a tension-filled landscape where every gesture, every word, and every interaction carries the weight of past decisions, family pressures, and imposed circumstance. The illusion of a functional monogamous household is maintained for public consumption, yet privately, the structures of manipulation, subtle coercion, and emotional negotiation persist relentlessly. In this context, the audience is presented not merely with a story of personal relationships, but with a study in human behavior, domestic power dynamics, and the consequences of a life in which freedom of choice is constrained by belief, expectation, and historical precedent. In the world of love, choice, and human relationships, there is often a hidden struggle between desire and circumstance, between the life we imagine and the life we are forced to live. Few stories illustrate this more vividly than that of Cody Brown and Robin, two individuals caught in the web of monogamy, each navigating it for reasons starkly different from the other. Cody, a man who once embraced the expansive, complex lifestyle of polygamy, now sees monogamy as a refuge, a way to manage risk, control chaos, and preserve a semblance of personal comfort. Robin, however, remains psychologically tethered to the principles of plural marriage, her mind still attuned to the spiritual and cultural justifications that once defined her decisions. This fundamental mismatch in motivation is at the heart of the tension that now permeates their household. Cody approaches monogamy as a practical necessity, a compromise meant to contain unpredictability and avoid conflict. Robin, in contrast, continues to grapple with the allure of the plural life, the sense that the highest spiritual rewards and the ultimate fulfillment of her faith are tied to multiple unions. In theory, they coexist under the same roof, share meals, and perform the rituals of partnership, but the undercurrent is one of misalignment, where each action, each gesture, and each word carries the weight of unspoken dissatisfaction. The emotional tension is palpable, even for viewers watching from afar. The sustainability of such a relationship is inherently limited. When partners enter a union for divergent reasons, the risk of conflict multiplies exponentially. Monogamy, when embraced out of personal choice, can foster intimacy, trust, and shared growth. When imposed or partially coerced, it can generate resentment, misunderstanding, and passive-aggressive dynamics. Cody and Robin's lives exemplify this paradox. While outwardly they may present as a couple committed to one another, privately, each is negotiating boundaries, managing expectations, and silently bracing for the inevitable clash that stems from fundamentally different orientations toward love and duty. The drama is magnified by the lens of the reality television audience. Millions tune in not only for entertainment, but for the human drama, the exposure of secrets, and the raw portrayal of emotional dynamics that rarely get articulated in ordinary households. The show captures these tensions brilliantly, presenting moments of affection and tenderness while simultaneously hinting at deeper discord. Cody's occasional warmth, Robin's subtle gestures of care, and the carefully staged family interactions all operate within a framework of performance and observation. Beneath the surface lies toxicity, emotional strain, and power negotiation, the hidden ingredients that make this story compelling, yet also profoundly unsettling. From an analytical perspective, this narrative functions as a case study in the psychological complexities of constrained relationships. Monogamy and polygamy are not merely lifestyle choices. They are frameworks that shape perception, influence behavior, and dictate the dynamics of control, responsibility, and emotional labor. In Cody and Robin's household, monogamy is not purely an expression of love, but a mechanism through which control, avoidance of conflict, and self-preservation are exercised. Robin's residual attachment to polygamous ideals ensures that compromise is fraught, negotiations are delicate, and emotional intimacy remains tentative. Each interaction is a careful calculation, balancing affection with restraint, desire with obligation, and personal belief with imposed circumstance. For the audience, the show serves as a dual experience: voyeuristic entertainment and subtle education. Viewers witness how appearances can be deceiving, how public displays of love and commitment can mask underlying toxicity, and how individuals navigate the tension between personal fulfillment and relational expectation. It is a lesson in human psychology, showing that even the most structured, ritualized relationships are vulnerable to misalignment and emotional strain when partners enter with divergent motivations. The audience is compelled not merely by spectacle, but by recognition, by the uncomfortable realization that love, marriage, and family are rarely simple, even when packaged neatly for television. The narrative arc of Cody and Robin's life underlines a timeless human tension: the clash between what we desire and what circumstances demand. Monogamy, for Cody, is a shield. For Robin, it is a compromise that challenges her beliefs, her faith, and her expectations. The toxicity that arises is not overtly explosive, but insidious, manifested in subtle power plays, restrained frustrations, and the careful negotiation of emotional space. For those watching, the story resonates not because it is unique, but because it magnifies universal truths about relationships: the negotiation of freedom, the management of expectation, and the quiet heartbreak that accompanies unmet alignment between partners. In this lens, reality television becomes more than entertainment. It is a mirror reflecting the intricate, often contradictory forces at play in human connection. Cody and Robin's struggles are dramatized for the screen, yet they also illuminate authentic psychological dynamics: the fragility of enforced monogamy, the enduring pull of belief and family expectation, and the subtle toxicity that can develop when motivations are misaligned. Every glance, every conversation, and every staged scene carries layers of meaning, revealing both the artifice of performance and the vulnerability of genuine emotional struggle. Through the lens of viewer engagement, the story teaches a subtle but powerful lesson: relationships are not merely defined by gestures of affection or outward appearances. They are shaped by motivations, alignment of desire, and the capacity of individuals to negotiate the complex terrain of expectation, belief, and obligation. Cody and Robin's household, fraught with unspoken tension and silent compromise, exemplifies the human cost of misaligned relationships, illustrating the precarious balance between love, control, and the pursuit of personal fulfillment. As the season unfolds, the narrative promises further complexity. Conflicts, reconciliations, subtle manipulations, and the interplay between public persona and private reality continue to play out in a way that captivates viewers while offering a profound lens into the mechanics of modern relationships constrained by faith, tradition, and circumstance. The toxicity, the subtle betrayals, the negotiation of desire and expectation. These are the elements that keep the audience riveted, providing insight, cautionary lessons, and a mirror into the universal dynamics of love and human behavior. Even as they share smiles, gestures of care, and scripted routines for the cameras, the underlying misalignment remains. Cody's pragmatism, Robin's spiritual and familial ties, and the subtle power imbalances ensure that monogamy in their household is a negotiated, fragile construct rather than a shared, mutually desired choice. The story continues to evolve, revealing layer by layer how interpersonal dynamics, belief systems, and family influence can converge to produce tension, discomfort, and drama that captivates viewers while reflecting authentic psychological truths. Ultimately, Cody and Robin's story is both spectacle and study, a display of human behavior under pressure, a revealing exploration of what happens when life paths, personal beliefs, and motivations collide, and a cautionary tale of the silent, sometimes invisible, toxicity that can exist even in households outwardly performing unity and devotion. The audience is left to witness, analyze, and perhaps recognize fragments of their own relationships mirrored in the subtle strategies, emotional negotiations, and persistent challenges faced by these two adults, navigating a monogamous life that neither fully envisioned nor wholly desired. Thanks for watching.